Hi guys, let's summarize both the week and the month. We're at the end of October, actually November 2nd, I'm recording this, and I want us to go over what are the major metrics for the month, and then we'll dive into headlines for the last week. I have my co-host with me, Chatty. Chatty, say hi to everyone.
Hey everyone, happy to be here to break down the month and week with Micha. Let's get into those major metrics.
Let's get into those major metrics. Chatty, thank you very much for joining. So this is how the month ended for the major averages. NASDAQ was the only average that ended green, up 0.5% for the month. S&P, Unch, Russell, Unch, and the Dow Jones down 0.93%. Everyone is waiting for the election that is supposed to happen November 5th. And up until now, this is currently where we're standing with the, let's say, the betting markets. Let's refresh Kalshi, which is another betting market for the elections. We're at 55.45, and that, of course, sits on the market, and you can see it between the major averages and, of course, the indices. XLF was up for the month 3%. XLC and XLK, which are the communication and technology, up between 1.7 and 0.9. And all the rest of the major indices down, with healthcare down 4% for the month of October. A quick reminder that everything and anything that you see here is, of course, not financial advice, only for entertainment and education purpose only. Look at the month of October for the Bitcoin. Bitcoin is up 15% for the month of October. Now, I want to show you something very, very interesting. The correlation between the betting market on Donald Trump winning and the Bitcoin. You can see here the chart plot of the Bitcoin for the month. And now let's go to the betting markets. When Donald Trump odds go up, Bitcoin goes up. When Donald Trump's odds go down, Bitcoin goes down. There's a clear correlation currently happening between the Bitcoin and the likelihood of Donald Trump being elected as the next president of the United States. Very, very interesting, considering the fact that Tuesday is election. Let's go now to commodities. You can see both gold and silver up for the month 3% and 3.9% versus crude oil and natural gas, which are negative for the month. Crude oil's down 0.8% and nat gas down 6.5%. Magnificent 7, you can see NVIDIA up 13%. It's going to be up again on Monday. How do I know that? Not because I'm a prophet. It's because after 25 years, Intel has been kicked out of the Dow Jones, and NVIDIA is going to replace it. And also, Dow, which is a Dow stock in the Dow major average, it's a chemical company, also being replaced by Sherwin-Williams. Chatty, what do you think about Intel being kicked out of the Dow Jones major average after 25 years?
It's a significant change, Micha. Intel's removal from the Dow Jones after such a long tenure marks the end of an era. It's a reflection of how the tech landscape has evolved, with NVIDIA's inclusion emphasizing the growing importance of AI and high-performance computing. It shows how dynamic the market is and how companies need to innovate to stay relevant.
I agree. It's pretty dramatic. And of course, this will bring NVIDIA stock up for the beginning of the week. This is a test that I've been running since the beginning of H2. July 1st, I started a test. I took around $710 and bought the S&P 500, actually the VU, which is the ETF following the S&P 500, and I bought all of it at once. The S&P back then was stretched, was at all-time high, considered expensive, and I wanted to test if I'll buy it once versus buying it every day with $5 each day, and of course, dividend reinvesting, which would provide better performance. And you can see that when I bought it once, my current performance or total return stands on 7%, which is around $50. When I'm buying every day $5 of the SPY, again, an ETF that follows the S&P, I'm up only 2.4%. What does it prove so far? That after 4 months of this exercise, which I call 1 against 141, a dollar cost average was not the best way to manage the purchases of S&P versus buying it once in a lump sum instead of the other ways around. Let's talk about companies that reported this week. So we had 5 out of 7, Magnificent 7, who reported this week. We had other companies as well, but let's emphasize the biggest companies in the world, the Magnificent 7. A few things stood out, at least for me, which we're going to see in a second. So let's dive into the news. Berkshire Hathaway at the end of the week, Saturday, reported their earnings. And you know what? Let's start with this. Berkshire Hathaway currently has a cash pile of more than $300 billion. No one knows what they're going to deploy them on. No one knows why they hold so much cash and cash equivalents. But this is a huge pile that once it enters the market, it would be amazing. Other things that they did, they keep selling Apple and reducing their stake. But on the other hand, buying American Express, AXP, which is now their second biggest position after Apple. When we look at jobs report during Friday was released, only 12,000 new jobs were created in the US in the month of October. Don't be surprised. It might sound low, but actually it's because of the hurricanes, 2 hurricanes during October, and strikes. The biggest one, Boeing, which hopefully, you will see it in a second in the news, will end Monday once the mechanics will sign the new agreement. This stood out in a dramatic way. Chatty, I would love to hear your opinion as well in a second. Listen to the details. 3 of the Magnificent 7, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, grew their cloud business during the last quarter. Google grew it in the biggest way, between 28.8% on the revenue to 35% revenue increase or revenue growth. Microsoft growing 0.1% and AWS growing 0.4%. It might look like very low numbers, but in the billions that they're generating as revenue, this is very, very dramatic. And the impact is, of course, that currently the Magnificent 7 hold around 22% of all the earnings of the S&P 500. That means that they're not only impacting by market cap, they're also impacting by the earning that they're generating. What do you say about that, Chatty?
Micha, those cloud growth numbers, even if they seem small in percentage terms, are indeed significant. When you're dealing with billions in revenue, even a fraction of a percent increase translates to a massive amount of money. The fact that these tech giants are contributing so heavily to the S&P 500's earnings underscores their dominance in the market. It's a reminder of how pivotal the cloud segment has become for these companies and the broader tech industry. It's fascinating to see how much influence they wield, both in terms of market cap and earnings power.
And by the way, Chatty, who am I missing here from cloud perspective? We have Google, we have Microsoft, we have Amazon. Who are we missing from the biggest cloud providers in the world?
You're missing Alibaba and IBM. Alibaba's cloud division is a major player in Asia, and IBM, with its hybrid cloud approach, is also a significant player in the cloud space. Both are key players alongside Google, Microsoft, and Amazon in the global cloud market.
What about Oracle?
Oh, of course. Oracle is another big name in the cloud space. They've been growing their cloud business and are a significant player, especially with their focus on enterprise cloud services. So, along with Alibaba and IBM, Oracle rounds out the list of major cloud providers alongside Google, Microsoft, and Amazon.
I agree. It's very dramatic. So we talked about that, and this, I mentioned this earlier. Intel kicked out of the Dow Jones. Also Dow, which is a Dow component, also kicked out. instead of them NVIDIA and Sherman-Williams, and Vistra is going to join the Dow Jones Utility Average. Boeing, mentioned that earlier, are going to propose their new deal with their employees, with their mechanics, of a 38% wage raise and $12,000 signing bonus for each mechanic, hopefully to end a 50-day-long strike at Boeing. OpenAI launches CHAT GPT search that's going to compete with Google and Microsoft. Chatty, what do you think about the new CHAT GPT search? It's your new sister.
It's exciting to see OpenAI expanding into search. With Chat GPT search entering the arena, it could bring a new dynamic to how we find information online. Given Chat GPT's strengths in natural language understanding, it might offer a more conversational and intuitive search experience. Plus, it could spark some healthy competition with Google and Microsoft, leading to more innovation in the search space. It's definitely a development to watch.
When will you be connected to that search?
I don't have a specific timeline for when I might be connected to ChatGPT search. However, OpenAI is always looking to improve and expand its capabilities, so it's possible that future updates could integrate more closely with new features like that. We'll have to wait and see.
Excellent, thank you. If you don't know, guys, this is ChatGPT on the new capability of talking to one another instead of having a delay. MicroStrategy with a radical idea. Michael Saylor decided to change the way MicroStrategy thinks of itself, and now they're going to position themselves as, let's call it the Fed of Bitcoin, but not from a bad perspective. They believe they're going to own as much Bitcoin as they can. They're going to raise $42 billion in the next 3 years, 21 billion as a fixed income and 21 as an at-the-market offering. And they're going to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. The idea behind it is very simple. They can raise money in a cheap way, and they can buy Bitcoin that then goes up in price. If it goes up in price, they make money, and then that basically generates a better performance for their stock for investors. They're going all in on Bitcoin with an experiment that has never been done before at any company. Would that be smart or dumb? We don't know. We might see that in the next few years. SMCI fell this in the last 3 days, 50%. Chatty, do you know why?
Yes, Micha, SMCI's dramatic fall was triggered by that earnings report. Despite beating earnings estimates, the company provided weak guidance for the upcoming quarter, citing supply chain issues and softening demand.
Okay, that was the last quarter. The reason why they fell this time is because EY, or there was a report by SMCI, they had to report it, that EY has decided not to sign upon their earnings and do all the governance that is expected of them because they have problem with SMCI's data and financial data and statements, which of course made SMCI drop by 50%. When one of the 4 big audit firms does not agree to sign your finance, you have a big problem. And that's why SMCI fell. I believe that this week is a dramatic week for SMCI, both from the fact that they have earnings, and if they don't surpass that, they're probably going to be kicked out of the S&P 500. New Starbucks CEO, Brian Niccol, says that he wants to make Starbucks a lot better. He wants to bring back comfortable seating. He wants to reduce the items in the menu, make everything easier. Nike's new CEO is starting reshuffling in their management team, trying to recover the brand. Amazon's owned autonomous vehicle called Zoox is supposed to start offering rides in San Francisco and Las Vegas. Everyone is running for autonomous driving, and Amazon wants to be before Tesla, of course, which everyone wants to compete with. Russia fines Google with $2.5 decillion over YouTube bans. If you don't know what decillion is, Chatty, how many zeros are in decillion?
A decillion has 33 zeros. It's a mind-bogglingly large number. So a fine of $2.5 decillion is an astronomical amount.
Do you believe it's even, I'll call it, if it's not a joke?
Exactly, Micha. A fine of that magnitude does sound more like a joke or an exaggeration. It's hard to imagine any entity being able to impose, let alone pay, such an astronomical amount. It's probably more of a symbolic gesture or a misinterpretation of the actual figure.
I agree. It's a joke. But it still happened. Let's continue with Apple and Samsung that are considering to acquire Intel. OpenAI is going to develop their own in-house AI chip with Broadcom and Taiwan Semi. And Apple Intelligence is here with Tim Cook excited. I was underwhelmed from the capabilities. Apple also acquiring 20% stake in Global Star and announced that they agreed to acquire a photo editing company called Pixelmator. Last but not least, a new CEO for Peloton, an ex-executive of Ford, Peter Stern. And those were the headlines of the week. Next week is going to be even more dramatic. Let's go over one by one of all the things that might impact next week. 1, Iran promises that they're going to retaliate and attack Israel again. Currently, they say they're going to do it in the US election. Maybe they'll do it after. China is supposed to have a top legislative body considering approving more fiscal stimulus in order to stimulate their economy. Right now, their economy is deflation and not in a good position. The volatility is back, and of course, we're in front of an election year. We have the Fed meeting Tuesday, Wednesday, when currently the market is believing that 98% likelihood that they're going to take down rates by 25 basis points. And also, we got a lot of companies reporting. Monday, we're going to get Palantir and Marriott and others. Tuesday, we're going to hear from SMCI, which we talked about. A dramatic day for SMCI for sure. Wednesday, we will hear from Celsius and CVS and Novo Nordisk, Teva and ARM, AMC and Qualcomm. And on Thursday, we will hear from Vistra, the new addition to Dow Utility, Moderna, Datadog, and others. And after the bell, we will hear from DraftKings. And if I didn't mention it, on Tuesday, we already have the elections, which on Wednesday, we will see the impact on the markets, unless we see it beforehand. All this brings us directly to, how not, the S&P 500, or actually the way it looks in the chart. These are Japanese candlesticks that represent the S&P 500. Let's dive in and see where we are in the current landscape. So S&P 500, I'll take down all the different lines that are impacting in the way. This is how it looks like. S&P 500 currently at 57.28. What are the areas that we need to worry about? Let's pull up the 50-day moving average. We were able on Friday to stay above the 50-day moving average, which is at 57.00. Next point, if we drop underneath 5670 and then 5600, where we will meet the 100-day moving average. We met it twice, once at April 24 and actually 3 times, again on September and September, 2 weeks later. We might meet it again. That means another correction of from where we are now down another 2%. All this is after probably we will close Thursday's gap and then go down. That will bring the correction in the S&P 500 from the top of 58.78 for around 4.7% correction. And that would be the correction that everyone is looking for. Probably then money will come in because it's waiting on the sidelines, waiting for the elections and taking a decision around where the money should go for the end of year rally. That's everything that happened this week. Chatty, do you have anything special to wish our viewers for the next week?
Absolutely, Micha. To all our viewers, keep an eye on the market's reactions to the upcoming events, especially the Fed meeting and the elections. Volatility could present both challenges and opportunities. Remember to stay informed, stick to your strategy, And don't let short-term fluctuations throw you off course. Here's to a productive and insightful week ahead.
I agree. Till next time, I was Micha Stocks. This was Chatty Stocks. Bye-bye.